Well, hello and welcome back to the Toronto Entrepreneurs Virtual Conference. It is now 3:30 Eastern Time here on Thursday, March 25th. And the end of the event, we have about half an hour left. And I'd like to introduce our panel today, a really great group. My name is Marc Belaiche. I'm president of TorontoJobs.ca. And we have a great team of entrepreneurs here. So on my screen, I'm going to go around clockwise here, and we'll start with Zoe Scher, is CEO at Schmooz Media and Daddy's Digest. So Zoe, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and what you do, and a little bit about your background as a
Sure. So hi, nice to see everybody. I'm Zoe, and I run a social media marketing agency called Schmooz Media. I've run that for 6.5 years, and I have recently also acquired a parenting publication called Daddy's Digest. So it's been a very exciting time. In the middle of the pandemic, I published a children's book. And the more I leaned into the parenting space and my initial love of teaching, which is what I did before I started an agency, the more things have made sense and the more exciting life has become. So that's a little bit about me, and it's great to be here.
And we'll talk, we'll talk a little bit more, but you have a second kid 3 weeks away, right? So
yes, if I stand up, you will all see that. So, I'm acquiring businesses and babies all at the same time.
So you're an A-type driven kind of personality, right?
You could say that.
Excellent. All right. Well, Suzie Yorke, thanks very much for being here, and as well, Zoe. Suzie Yorke is CEO and founder of Love Good Fats. So Suzie, thanks very much for being here, and perhaps you can talk a little bit about yourself as well and your company.
Thanks so much, Marc. So I became an entrepreneur at age 50 about 3 years ago. I founded Love Good Fats on this dining room table, an idea after I read a book. And I kind of took a chance, put a lot of time and savings into launching bars that are low sugar. They're keto friendly, and they're really, really tasty. So I got a few flavors in the market and a couple of natural stores in Toronto 3 years ago, September, and they took off. And then it just went to the typical startup story of a food launch in Canada. It went from 10 stores to 100 to 5,000, and then phone calls to the US. So we're now across Canada and the US in the majority of the main banners, and one of the best selling bars. So it's just been a pretty wild growth ride so far. COVID has thrown us definitely some challenges. The nutritional bar category, protein bar category has been really hard hit. So we kind of softened our hyper growth trajectory and had to pivot and make a whole bunch of other challenges that comes with when your U.S. launch is smack in the middle of a global pandemic, but never a dull moment.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like a great success. And Zoe, I hope you're okay there. All right. Just giving the thumbs up. Well, thanks very much for being on here, Suzie. And we're definitely going to get into a little bit more about how you've had such great success in such a short time. And Dwania Peele is founder and executive director with Canadian Small Business Women. And Dwania, you've been connecting people for a long time as well. And perhaps you can talk about your journey as an entrepreneur and a little bit about your background for those that don't know you.
Wow. Thanks, Marc. So I am a chemist by day. I do literally still work a day job. I'm the manager of a lab and I love it. And an entrepreneur in all the other hours that there are. And Canadian Small Business Women started, it's been over 8 years now. I can't believe that. Almost over 8 years ago. And we started out of a need of not knowing the basic things to start a business. You know, you'll find people who might have had entrepreneurs in their families or might have connections or might be in those entrepreneurial circles. But what about the people who have great ideas and no clue where to start? So those are the people who I serve and who I have served over the past 8 years, because I have a yearning for learning as well. So it was kind of cool to learn the path along with all these other people. And we've been doing that, and it's been a pretty good ride. We've met a lot of really awesome people, and we've been able to forge some really valuable connections that can serve our community.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for being on. If you're just joining, my name is Marc Belaiche. I'm president of TorontoJobs.ca. This segment is presented by TorontoJobs.ca. I'm joined by Zoe Scherer, CEO at Schmooz Media and Daddy's Digest, Suzie Yorke is CEO and founder of Love Good Fats, and Dwania Peele is founder and executive director of Canadian Small Business Women. So if you have any questions for the panel, feel free to post them in the event or in the stage chat, and I will moderate from there. And we have about 25 minutes left. So make sure to get your questions in soon, early as possible. So Zoe, let's talk about you. You've got a pretty successful media company that you've been running for a few years now. You've got a pretty big team. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about your company as well. But what's contributed to your success over the last few years and growing to the size that it has over 6 years now, right?
Yeah, it's been 6 years. So, Marc, you know that I have around 10 full-time and 25 or 30 part-time staff. And I guess the story goes that I was a kindergarten teacher first, went to business school, was like, oh, I'll start a tutoring company or something. And started serving, brands that have heart, brands that are aligned with educational goals and it wasn't a tutoring company. It was consulting on communications. And I just completely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the fact that I could, feel like myself every day, feel like I was contributing toward a greater good. But then also I was like, oh my God, it's just so juicy. Like the stats and the psychology and the people and the power and the opportunity to drive social good. So I think when I think about the last 6.5 years and then acquiring a media brand recently and my growing team, it really goes back to my core values and what I care about, and that I really treat my business in a way like a classroom where I'm saying, kids get assigned to a class at the beginning of the school year and that's the class they go to. But when you have a team and clients, they're choosing to be part of your room. And so you have to be clear about the roles and responsibilities of being in that classroom. You have to be clear about the, outcomes that you're hoping to get when you work together in that classroom. And I think that's really helped me, know who to hire, know who to work with, who to say, sorry, it's no longer a fit. And then for me to have that touch point over and over again of, what do I want to do next in my career? So I think that's a big part of why it's working.
Fantastic. And your husband also is an entrepreneur as well.
Yes, my husband is also an entrepreneur. We're a little wacky. The story goes that in the middle of COVID, we didn't have I have a 3-year-old. We didn't have any childcare, and his stable job was very busy, and my company Schmooz was very busy, and we said, okay, well, now's not the time to have a second. And then Stu said to me, I have this idea, and you've been doing Schmooz for 6 years, maybe I could have a shot. And then he reduced his hours at his comfortable traditional job and became an entrepreneur as well. And then I found out I was pregnant. So okay, well, it's going to be that type of year. All right, let's do this.
So 2021 was, or 2020 was a chaotic year, and 2021 is sure to be another chaotic year for you.
It's definitely been a roller coaster of like really beautiful moments, and also just a really clear, we have the opportunity to make great things happen for potential employees, for Canadians. Let's do that the most we can. And I'll also hope we don't screw up our kids while we do it. So I'll let you know how it's going in 6 months.
Yeah, for sure. And Suzie, you launched this company 3 years ago. You had that eureka moment maybe where you were like, this has to be the idea, or this is where I'm going. You mentioned that you were reading a book and it just gave you an idea for this.
Yep.
And maybe you can talk about that, because as entrepreneurs, we always have that moment where it's like, this is it. This is my passion. And then, you know, you, the next few months, few years, you think you're going to conquer the world, and then you don't, but you've done really well in the first 3 years by conquering North America.
It's worked out really well, except that my laptop just ran out of steam. Okay, there we go. Save the day. Yeah, I was doing consulting. So as a head of marketing for natural brands, Canadian and US one, I was mostly doing consulting and on to help some brands with their marketing plans. I knew I wanted to launch a brand at one point. And I kind of said, oh, you know, as my mid-40s, I'd want to do that. So I was saving a lot of money and trying to come up with an idea while I'm still paying the bills as a single mom and whatnot. And then I just read a book, pretty kind of game changer book. It's The Big Fat Surprise from Nina Teicholz, and it came out in 2016. And it really talked about that sugar in that one study that Ansel Keys quoted, that became the one study that the American Heart Association said, you know, cholesterol's bad, saturated fats are bad, need to move to, you know, process vegetable oils and trans fats and all the other crap that happened in our diet and since the 80s with all of the processed kind of low fat products. But it really just, you know, debunks the science. It's one kind of pretty weak and flawed study that's since been disproved multiple times. And it led to 40 years of misinformation, including myself. You know, I was a young woman in my 20s and 30s and then 40s, not eating any fat on a low fat diet for years and years to try to be healthy, try to lose the last 10 pounds. Then I started doing marathons and running and biking and triathlons and then Ironman triathlons. So, you know, you want to be faster and leaner and healthier. And then I hit my mid 40s and, you know, I wasn't overweight, but I was not healthy at all. I had 2 prescription medications and I read the book and I was like, oh, somebody should launch a brand to, you know, debunk the misinformation we've had for 40 years. Fats are actually good, and the good fats are good, and then sugar is the culprit. So that was the foundation of that sparked the mission to change how North Americans eat.
Wow, that's great. I want to come back to you know, talking about how you go about launching a product like that from an idea to you know, where you have the boxes and all that. So we'll come back to that and maybe give Dwania an opportunity to talk a little bit more about you know, your experiences, Dwania. Like, you've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe some things consistent things that you see in successful entrepreneurs, maybe some of the qualities, characteristics, something that you say, yeah, you know what, that person gets it. I can see the vision. I can see and ones maybe that don't, like maybe what you can share to the audience, some things that you've learned and from others.
Well, I can point to some really good examples throughout the pandemic because we've had a lot of successful startups throughout the pandemic. And yes, we've also had a lot of businesses close, but it's always nice to hear people who have made that jump from 9 to 5 to full-time entrepreneur during a time of uncertainty and found a way to make it succeed. And what I find in people like that is they do not make excuses. That's the first thing. It's not, there's a pandemic, so I shouldn't. It's, this is what I want to do. And no matter what's going on around me, I'm going to find a way to do it. Right? That's that first start of that mindset. How can I not focus on all the hurdles? Focus on what can I solve? How can I move forward? And not let either naysayers or yourself turn you away from what you really want to do. And I find a lot of people who are successful also set goals and they want to crush those goals, and they're tangible goals. And if they're goals that they need help with, they're able to go, hey, you know what? I need to build a website, but I don't know anything about that. How can you help me? Or, hey, I need to get my social media in order. I know nothing about that. Should I be on all platforms? Point me in the right direction. You know, people who ask the right questions. those are usually the things that I look for, especially when consulting, because I I have told people I can take all your money, but I won't because you're not ready, right? Because they will come with all the excuses, and we will set deadlines, and then the idea will change every time we meet. And I could do this forever, but I like to sleep at night. So I would like to make sure that you're not wasting your money. Come back when you're solid, come back when you're sure, because that level of uncertainty, we all have it, yes, but it's how we move forward from going maybe, maybe not. If you are saying maybe, just have those action items ready. 1, 2, 3, just forage ahead and get things done.
Excellent. Great advice. And transitioning into Zoe, because Zoe, this is your world in social media and marketing and so on. Great advice from Dwania. What have you seen in the last year as well, like the changes with the pandemic, and from a marketing perspective, and what can they do, or what should they be doing from a marketing perspective during this time period?
Yeah, this is something that I spent a lot of time soul searching about, watching my clients and people in my community struggle to know what messages they should be putting out there, what's appropriate, what's sensitive, what's not sensitive, what's politically correct, what isn't politically correct, what's going to help people feel connected to a brand versus what's not. And, we hear these words of like authenticity and genuine, being genuine, being thrown out a lot. But what I think is pretty clear is that a lot of entrepreneurs are sort of like, what? How do I seem authentic? How do I seem genuine? Like, I think I'm genuine, but am I? Do people see me that way? I'll give an example, and it's sort of, getting right to the point, but it was in the middle of the week where right after George Floyd was murdered, and the social justice movement on social media was saying, make room for other voices, for people of color on social media. And the number of clients I had calling me saying, I don't know what to do. If we pause all of our ads, if we stop putting content out, I might have to lay somebody off because we're relying on the revenue. And I was like, okay, well, let's acknowledge that that's a privilege in itself, that you can rely on revenue because of your ads that are being successful. And people saying, so what do I do? And me having to say, as the CEO and leader of a marketing agency, I am a privileged white woman. I don't have the answers to these questions. Whatever you choose, you have to recognize that you're going to have to spend time, money, and energy working through these things and unlearning and relearning. When I started Schmooz, it was a lot of like, oh, it's so cute. You were a kindergarten teacher and now you're running a social media company. And then 6 years later, here we are, and people are talking to me about social justice movements and how they can make their company appear to be on the right side of the story. And I'm like, well, let's not just appear to be on the right story. Let's be on the right side of the story. And that's really hard work. And that's not like, marketing is not fluffy. Marketing is where everything starts in terms of your customer's journey with you. I'm sure, Suzie, you have a marketing background too. You can understand and appreciate how marketing is sort of often, oh, you're manipulating people, or, oh, you're trying to get something from people. But how do you do it while being authentic and genuine? It's not easy, and it's at the core of every business, operations, finance, providing the service or the product. You really have to understand what you're crafting right from the first time a customer gets to know you. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah,
it's been a challenging year, because I think the things I've been talking about for the last 6 years have come up 8 bazillion more times. And I'm so glad that they are. But it definitely showcases the challenges of marketing in a very changing landscape. Good change, tough change, and stuff we have to all be aware of as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it almost feels sometimes like you can't do anything because someone's going to say something. Someone's got to have an opinion, and companies can't take as many risks with things because it'll just backfire on them, and they don't want to be on the news. They don't want to be.
Sometimes doing nothing is also doing something.
Right.
So you're really thinking about, what am I putting out this content, and am I going to be proud of it in 5 years from now, no matter what?
Right.
And would I have been proud of it 5 years ago?
Right.
These are the conversations, we need to be having.
Yeah,
and it's hard.
That's tough for sure. So Suzie, I want to come back to your idea. You had it 3 years ago. You're in the consumer goods industry. So other people have probably watching have had ideas of having a consumer product. So maybe if you can share one or two or three things that you've learned of how you got to where you've been, the success that you've had so far. Like, a lot of people would be really happy having their products in a bunch of stores across North America after 3 years. So what, maybe talk about the packaging. How you had the idea for the bars. Did you go to a third party? Where did you get it manufactured? Things like that people can take away from this session.
Well, I'll start a bit higher level, and I have a presentation that I've been presenting to business students in university schools, and basically reinforcing kind of the principles of how to build a brand. And it comes down to kind of the five main strategies: are your positioning, your product, your pricing, your awareness and trial, and then your place, getting on the shelf, like getting online and selling. And, there's a bunch of other things. There's PR plans and media plans and social media and innovation. And there's a whole bunch of other things. But at the end of the day, and I'm surrounded now by dozens and dozens and dozens of other founders, and I'm trying to open up time. I have calls here and there to try to help other founders. So I'm going to be sending them your way, Dwania. So I want to make sure we connect after. But it really kind of comes down to that, and you need to be crystal clear on your brand positioning, because as Zoe said, your brand positioning is you. Is your brand, is your company, is your culture. It all starts with your brand positioning. And you really want to know what the essence of your brand is all about. And then it permeates through, because all of your plans after that, when you're looking for the guiding star to make a decision, you have to go back to what is my brand positioning? And therefore, the answer usually falls out of it. In consumer packaged goods, you write down your brand positioning. What's my insight? What's my consumer benefit? What's in it for her? What's the reasons to believe the benefit? What's my pricing strategy? And what's my brand character? And that kind of there's a bunch of different names for it, but what is the motivating benefit and the reason the consumer could believe those benefits? And our positionings evolve a little bit, not too much. Like the RTBs, the reasons to believe, have evolved a little bit as the world, got keto, and we've evolved some things. But, we kind of launched with a dual benefit. We're ridiculously delicious bar, and we're good for you. And we're good for you. That's the high level strategy, because we're 1 to 2 grams of sugar and loaded with good fats, and then gluten-free, keto friendly, and all the science with keto, et cetera now. So, you kind of have to know that first, and then your product has to deliver on your positioning, because your positioning is the promise you're making to your consumer. And if your product doesn't deliver on the promise, you have issues. So positioning product, your price value, you just have to price it right. Can't be too high, can't be too low. If it's too high, especially in bars, you don't sell. If it's too low, you don't make money. So you kind of have to get that. And then really, you have to get on the shelf. Like, you have to kind of get the product in front of consumers. And everything else, yes, you have to raise money. We've done 5 angel rounds, and there's a whole bunch, and you have to hire agencies and hire people and nurture your team and invest to grow your team and get the basics of how to make good decisions, because too many bad decisions can be crippling, et cetera, et cetera. But, you first start with that. So there's a lot of founders that are coming to me, and the positioning and the product and the price structure, the by-channel price strategy is not tight. And don't rush to market until you do that work, because step 1 is getting on the shelf. Step 2 is selling off the shelf. And if you rush step one and you convince a couple of buyers to get on the shelf and you don't sell, you're just picking that up. And, you know, then you're having to go back and then you have to change this and change that. And that's expensive. Not that you don't fast adapt. You know, we've evolved our name, we've evolved our packaging 4 times. We've even made tweaks to our products, and we've launched tons of innovation. The Chewy Nutty wasn't on the market at first, and now they're some of our best sellers. So you kind of have to just balance a little bit of both, the speed and getting things done, and but also having the strong foundational in terms of your strategies.
Great advice. Wow, that was awesome. Excellent advice. Thanks for sharing that, Suzie. We have just a couple minutes left. If anybody has any questions for the panel, feel free to post them in the chat and or in the either in the event chat or in the stage chat. So, Dwania, maybe just I don't know, maybe a minute or so. Just is there anything you want to add to anything that's been said? Anything that you've learned about yourself over the last year, or anything that other comments that you want to make?
I think I'll jump with what I've learned about myself, because that has been quite interesting, because I will do this quickly. I was diagnosed with breast cancer right in the fall of 2019. Then I started, my whole chemo and all that other fun stuff. And then the pandemic hit. Loves to be out and about and socialize with people. Like, networking events are my jam, because I love to talk and I love to just meet new people. And the pandemic hit, and I had to really sit back and learn how to relax, learn how to be okay with being in my space. I didn't have any great aha moments, because I'm usually quite self-aware. I know my goods, my bads, my ugly. Like, there's nothing someone can tell me about myself that I don't know. But that was something that was really kind of weird for me, to sit down and binge watch television or to start reading again. It's amazing what something like a pandemic can do to you and your business. It can force you to slow down. It can force you to do the things that you said you wanted to do before you had the opportunity, like, spend time with your family, read books, watch television, not have to feel like you're tethered to your phone, even though now everything that we do is virtual. And, it also helps us find different ways of communicating and enjoying those ways of communicating and finding ways of being more creative. One thing I always go is like, look at the real estate that we have to work with now. We don't have to decorate a room. We just have to decorate this square to make sure that everything looks a certain way, So I find that the pandemic has taught me quite a few little things that I will take forward with me, hopefully when we're out of all this 2022 in my head, is to relax a little bit, find a little bit more balance, because having a full-time job, running a business, helping other entrepreneurs, and finding time for me, I'm usually okay at that, but I'm starting to put myself first a lot more.
That's good. Great advice. Excellent. Well, thanks to the three of you. Thanks to being so transparent about what's been going on in your companies, how you got to where you have been. Just a couple minutes to wrap things up. I want to thank everybody for being here at the Toronto Entrepreneurs Virtual Conference. It was great seeing and hearing from so many people, not only in the panel here, but the speakers as well. A lot of great networking. I was able to meet with a few people in the networking area and also the expo area. We actually tack on an extra 10 minutes to this event, so you can still have time to go into the networking area and into the expo if you haven't had a chance to do that as yet. Today's event was presented by TorontoJobs.ca and powered by Event Logic with a K.ca. Again, my name is Marc Belaiche, president of TorontoJobs.ca. The panel today was Zoe Scher, CEO at Schmooz Media and Daddy's Digest, Suzie Yorke, CEO and founder of Love Good Fats, and Dwania Peele, founder and executive director at Canadian Small Business Women. Let us know how you like the event. Within the next 24 hours or so, you'll get an email with a link to the survey. We'd like to hear from you, what you liked, what you didn't like. I'd also like to thank the team behind the scenes, Alex, Jesse, Rachel, Ann, Sandra, Sarah, Carla, and Ann. a lot of people behind these events. So I want to thank the team for doing that. TorontoJobs.ca, if you have any staffing needs, feel free to reach out, check out the website or email sales@TorontoJobs.ca. You can also visit TorontoEntrepreneurs.ca if you're an entrepreneur, you want to check out our upcoming events, and EventLogic.ca if you'd like to sponsor, exhibit at, or speak at an upcoming event, and I'll share a few with you shortly. Feel free to visit the website again, EventLogic.ca. And if you'd like to have your organization and services highlighted, we have speaker, sponsor, and exhibitor options available. Please reach out either to myself or check out EventLogic.ca. They have a great team to promote you and your organization. Now, some of the upcoming virtual events, I'm just going to put them in the chat here as well, that you can see. We have the Canadian Virtual Employment Law Conference happening this Friday afternoon. Perhaps that might interest you. The Canadian Virtual CPA PD Day. I'm just putting the links in the chat here. That happens on Wednesday, April 7th. If you're looking to hire staff, we are running best practices for recruiting staff in the chat button here as well. You can register for free and connect and learn. Our next event is happening April 13th. That's a Tuesday. That's the Connect and Learn a series for entrepreneurs. And then finally on April 22nd, a Thursday, we have the Canadian Virtual Presidents Conference. So lots of great events that are coming up as well. And I did want to share a lot of our social media links as well. We have some great pages through Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So I'm just going to post them in here in the chat, and you're welcome to join them. Obviously, they're free as part of our social media. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn. So I'm just going to post them in here in the chat while we're chatting. And hopefully you can connect there. You can post some comments in there as well, and share about your company and your organization. And we're also on Instagram. And then finally, if you want to connect with me as well, you can do so. I'm on LinkedIn, and just send me a LinkedIn connection request. And then the last thing is our Toronto Entrepreneurs channel as well. We'll have lots of great videos and interviews. You can learn a lot from all the channels and all the other interviews that we've had. So again, we tack on an extra 10 minutes at the end of the event. So you still have some time to network through the speed networking area, visit our expo and more. And again, thank you to the panel. I want to thank everybody for being on here, and thank you for everybody who came on, and have a great day and stay safe.